Welcome to Kingdom Mothers Rise Up, where I encourage and equip you to heal your heart and renew your mind so you can live the fully abundant life Jesus promised you. Let's go. It's time to move. Today's episode is part 1 of 2, where I am sharing with you a coaching session with the brave Clerissa from South Africa. She volunteered to have her coaching session shared on the podcast. Just wanted to give kind of behind the scenes of what does it look like to work with me as a coach, and also like the nuggets in there for her are going to work for a lot of you as well. So I wanted to share those. So today is part 1, and next Friday will be part 2. Oh, Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this opportunity to connect with Clerissa and to connect with you across the world. It's just such an honor to be able to use this technology and to be able to connect with your spirit, just with people that love you and are seeking you. And we invite you into this time. We ask you to guide the conversation, to bring whatever revelation or wisdom or peace is needed. I just thank you so much for your grace, that you love us, that you're interested in the big things and the little things that are going on in our lives. Thank you that you're a good Father. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
What would you like to talk about today?
The issue that I'm having at the moment is regulating my own emotions, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed and anxious about stuff. Because in my trauma healing or in the process that I'm currently in, I have noticed that my main emotion that I'm running on is fear. So being in that survival mode and constantly anxious is making it like I get overwhelmed quickly. I can't do a lot of people. I can't do a lot of noise anymore. And usually that wasn't an issue. But now with my boys, I tend to get irritated with them much more quickly. But I need to find a way to manage that and bring my levels down a bit without having to come and take an hour break from them in order to regulate myself again and move on with what we were doing. My youngest, he's 9. He couldn't sit still today because together we're learning about emotions, and he couldn't sit still today. And he was up and he was down and he was doing this and I was getting frustrated and irritated with him. And I can't leave and say, okay, you know what, we're not doing this lesson now for an hour and a half until mommy's brain calms down, because kids don't work that way. So I need to find a way in order for myself to, how to calm myself in a moment, because whatever I've tried have not worked.
And what have you tried?
Well, I've tried the tapping thing, where you that doesn't work. That sometimes that frustrates me more because I'm tapping and tapping and tapping and it's not working. I've tried breathing. I don't know, maybe I'm not doing the breathing right because that's not working. The only thing that really works is if I try and just I've got my own little space, as you can see. And so if I distance myself completely from that situation and come and calm down, then that works. But that's not always possible, because you can't. And I don't always want to remove myself from situations in order for myself to calm down, or come to a safe space, because that's not always possible. So I have no idea what else to try. Because if I put my headphones on, the boys bother me. If I try to listen to an audiobook or if I want to read, the boys constantly interrupt me, and that also overwhelms me and triggers me into getting more anxious and frustrated. And then that's a whole other bomb that wants to go off. So I need a way to center myself in those moments without making my boys also feel as if they're too much. Because they're boys. And they will be up, they will be down, they will be going all over the place. And I don't want them to, like, mom is getting frustrated and mom is getting overwhelmed, and make them feel as if it's their fault. So I need to learn coping mechanisms or try coping mechanisms that will initially, I might even pass on to them, where I can teach that to them as well and say, okay, when you're feeling like this is what you can do.
It sounds like there's actually two different sources of frustration, if I'm hearing you right. So like there's the anxiety that's kind of the trauma response of just like there's just too much noise and just too much activity. But then you were also saying, like, if you put your headphones on, they will interrupt you. If you're reading, they will interrupt you. That's a normal thing to get irritated with because they're not respecting your boundary. They're not respecting what you need right there. So that's a training issue where, like, your response of, like, this is all just too much is more of a trauma response. So they need, does that sound accurate? That there's those two different, so they
Yes.
need different solutions.
Okay.
Like in the moment, like you still have to calm down so you can figure out like which you're dealing with, but the coming and interrupting when you're reading is a training thing of like setting expectations and here's what's going to happen, and it's okay for mom to have quiet time and it's okay for you to stay and play by yourself or have your own quiet time, or whatever you set up for them for reasonable times. And it's like it's normal and healthy that you get frustrated when you're not being honored, because that shows an issue in the relationship. Can you tell me more about, you say you're doing trauma recovery, like what does that process look like? Are you doing that on your own or with someone, or?
So I'm doing that with Jennifer Lovemore, that was on the I Am Mom conference. She's coaching me through my trauma healing and everything that I've dealt with, which is actually bucket loads, like truckloads. And I never knew that all that stuff would start affecting me this much later in life. I always like brushed it off, saying, you know what, it's in the past, what happened, and there's you can just move forward. But yes, it comes to bite you later, if you haven't dealt with it. And so currently we are at a stage where I'm trying to name all my trauma, which is difficult because when you name it, it happened. So that's a thing. And in my trauma, I'm also in a space where there's so much trauma that I have put away for so long that my brain is it's hard to identify what happened and whether it really happened or if I'm making it up. So, and the thing is, I'm praying about that, and I'm asking God, show me what really is going on, what happened, and He's told me that everything that I think's fictional is actually stuff that has happened, but I'm struggling to process those things, and so there's this constant battle inside of me about, like, don't deal with it, just leave it, but deal with it. And so it's this constant inside battle of trying to do what I have to do in order to get better, or need to do in order to get better. But then life happens, and then you have to deal with everything else that's on your plate. And a lot of what I'm dealing with today has to do with living in that fear state, in that survival mode all the time. It's I can't stick to routines. I can't I can't plan. Everything that I do on a whim, because it's my body is in that state all of the time. So Jennifer's trying to help me find a way to plan my days. She's trying to help me train my brain to do like small things a week. Like this week, I'm supposed to crochet for 15 minutes and listen to a podcast or something for that 15 minutes with music. Just that. But even that's challenging, because when I go and sit down, my mind starts running. And it's like, okay, but I need to, I'm sitting and I'm crocheting, but like the laundry needs to get done, and the dishes and this, and I need to make dinner, and I do need to do prep. And that is how I wake up in the morning, with my head going like 100 miles an hour. And so I'm constantly tired, but I can't I can't sleep all day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's that. I wish someone would come to me and say, like, it's time for a nap. But unfortunately,
you have to be that person for yourself, and that's challenging.
Yes. And if your mind doesn't want to go quiet and you can't regulate that, then it becomes more difficult. And that's it's affecting my whole life at home. It's affecting me trying to get the boys into routine, and some of my trauma they've inherited. So it's me trying to heal two traumas, like my bucket loads, and then what spilled over to their cups. And it can be really overwhelming. And the mom guilt that goes along with that is ridiculous. I think you would know what I'm talking about. So there's like, my mind is running, and then I need it to, I need a way for it to stop, so I can do one thing, focus on one thing, calm down in that moment, be present in that moment. But it's nothing's allowing me to. So mostly I'm trying to avoid it, but avoiding the stuff is not working.
This makes it knock louder.
Yes, it does. It does.
I'm here. Pay attention to me. Does it work for you to write things down? Not like as in things to do, but to like put a pen to paper and be like, this is how I'm feeling. These are all my thoughts.
I've started to do that the last 2 to 3 days. But my brain is so busy that when I'm writing, it feels like I'm rambling. Like there's a lot. So, but what I tried today was focus on what are my worries, and just put those down. And try to see, okay, if I just do that and focus on that aspect, if it's going to be better. The one thing that I've been doing as well is during my quiet time, I would be, because I can't really pray without getting distracted. So I've been working on a two-way conversation with God and putting down what he says. And I feel that that's been working. So I would tell him about something that happened during the day, and then I would have the Bible open and read a verse, and then I'm like, but what's going on in this verse? And he would answer me, and then that I would write down, and I would make stuff more personal, like Bible verses and stuff. And I feel as if that's working, because it's more internalizing it than just reading it and it being someone else's thing. So that's working. But journaling, I have no idea how to do.
Well, to start with, there's no right or wrong. Like there's, take away the expectation that you need to do it right. Like saying, like, I feel like I'm rambling. Well, if you're putting down all the thoughts that are racing and spinning through your mind on paper, it probably is rambling because that's what's in your head. But that's okay, because if your goal is to slow down and decide what's important or what matters right now, or even like dealing with the emotions, like you're in the middle of the lesson with your boys and you're getting overwhelmed with their activity and inattentiveness or whatever, and you grab your notebook and write down, like, I'm feeling super irritated right now, just whatever is coming, because the writing forces your brain to slow down.
I've noticed that. Because
And
you need
things,
to focus.
yeah, because you need to focus on the writing. And God made our brains, made us for relationship. And so getting it out of our head, whether that's through writing, and whenever I write, I'm pretty much writing to him so that it is like that relational. But whether it's talking to somebody, and so like talk to him out loud, talk, call a friend, but getting it out of your head helps to stop the spinning and helps to bring clarity of how much is actually in there and how much of it actually matters and how much of it's really true. And like how you are feeling is always true. It's true. That's how you're feeling. But then when you get it out, like, okay, so what do I do with this? It's this, like, no, the boys are actually being disrespectful and they need a consequence. We need to address that. Or am I just feeling all anxious and stirred up because of all these past messages that I'm still processing through? And then, like drawing or doodling or painting, something that slows your brain down and it switches to a different part of your brain. Like handwriting does, it switches from that, like just thinking and trying to analyze how, what's the right thing to do and how am I going to get it all done and all of that. It switches to a different part of your brain. So then you automatically see things differently.
As you were saying about the consequences for the boys, and as I'm working through my own issues, like, because I'm constantly afraid, like I do not trust myself to make the correct decisions. Like I do not trust myself to discipline my boys. Like I do discipline them, but I struggle to be consistent because like technically I was abandoned as a kid. I never lived in one place. My mom would pass me off to my dad, and my dad would pass me off to my grandmother, and then I was in a hostel living there for a while. And so everybody passed me around. And I'm afraid when I do not have it in me for the fight with my boys. When it comes to discipline, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And I know that that's also causing me frustration. But I'm not in that headspace where I can say, you know what, to know when they are like I'm always afraid of overreacting because I'm in that anxiety state constantly. So I mostly let stuff slide because I'm like, because if I'm too harsh, I will push them away. But if I'm too lenient, it's not going to. So then I start procrastinating about everything. So it's a vicious cycle. But how can I, and how can I find a middle ground to discipline them without having my anxiety and my fear of not doing the correct thing? How can I bring that in order for me to also bring a sense of calm into that?
We'll be right back.
Art Doodling with Jesus is a membership where I do a live workshop once a month where we explore an emotion or an idea through doodling, which is just a simple creative process. I encourage you to draw with permanent markers and paint with watercolor paint to create space to listen to your emotions, the thoughts that are in your head, and what the Lord wants to say to you. And it's not about creating art. It is not about being good at it. It's about practicing the pause to go, what am I really feeling? What do I really think? What do I really believe on this particular topic? And giving you tools that you can use for yourself and with your kids to continue to explore your emotions outside of the workshops. You can come back and do workshops again and again if you're in the membership, but you also can take the practice that I'm teaching you and do it on your own for what's going on in your life. If you're interested in joining me, there's a link in the description. I have like 3 different thoughts which one is to start with. Discipline is training. So discipline is not just here's the consequence when you screwed up. Discipline is the entire training process. So teaching what is expected and communicating about it. And then, yes, there are consequences if it doesn't happen. So it's not you were bad and now I need to do something. It's not the reaction part. That's not really discipline. That's more typically punishment, which we don't want. So a lot of discipline in that training is like the term pre-deciding, in a place when you're calm, when you're talking to the Lord of like, okay, this is an issue that's irritating me the most right now. What do they need to know? What do I need to teach them so that this is different? And then what would an appropriate consequence be? And deciding that in a time with the Lord or with, a counselor or a friend or whatever. So you have that feedback that it's not overreacting. And, if it's different, they might act like you're overreacting and unreasonable, like they're going to challenge it. We don't like to change. We don't like to discipline ourselves or be disciplined. But you have that confidence of like, no, I decided this in a calm state of mind with the Lord or with a reliable person. And so I can deal with the pushback because I know that this is for the good long term, even if it's uncomfortable right now while we're figuring it out.
That makes a lot of sense. Because if I can calm down, so it's basically a communication issue. between me and them. And now, as you were saying, discipline is not punishment. I was like, when you say the word discipline, like in my head, I'm like going back to like disciplining a child when I was younger was you're getting a hiding, or you have to write out on the board so many times this thing you have to. So
it was punishment.
It was punishment. Discipline equals punishment. And now that you're saying discipline equals training, it makes it doesn't feel as harsh to me. Like I'm not going to be like the wicked witch of the West when it comes to it's about explain, because my oldest is 12, or he's 11 and a half turning 12. So for me to explain to him that discipline is training him will make more sense to him than me just punishing him all the time. And that might put me on the same team as them. And then they will understand why mommy gets irritated and frustrated.
Yeah, it's much more of a partnership. I am training you for your future. I'm training you to be an adult. I'm training you so that people like to be around you when you're older, and so that you can, hold a job, and you can, like, I am on your side, and like, it's not always going to be fun and comfortable, but yeah, I'm here as your parent, partnering with you to be the kind of person that God made you to be, and that I want you to be, and that ideally that they want to be, because they want people to like to be around them and appreciate their gifts and their strengths. And, so the discipline is all of that. Like, I'm helping build your strengths, and we need to work on those weaknesses. So yeah, much more of that like partnership. I'm coming alongside you instead of I'm standing over you waiting for you to screw up, and I'm going to punish you for that.
Yes. Because I think that's how they're feeling. Because I'm always like, it's very hard for me to be in a happy state, or in a state where I'm present in that moment. So because I'm constantly preparing for what might go wrong. It's
a trauma response.
Yeah, it sucks. And I think they are always waiting for the pin to drop. Like, if I'm going to do this, mom is going to flip about this. Not necessarily like it's, and that is also activating their trauma and their fight or flight, because they're like constantly living in that fear mode of what's going to happen. But if I start with the training part of it, it's going to be a lot easier for me, because I can also then train my own discipline into that. And start by doing like discipline exercises on myself, and then asking them maybe like, help mommy, because mommy wants to be, I want to be less on my phone. And then that can help me like be held accountable, and can help me with my discipline issues, like training discipline and not the punishment, because I can be very, very hard on myself, extremely hard. I can be cruel, brutal. And then it takes me a while to pick myself up again from having a talk with myself. I mean, the recovery time is about a week. But then but then I'm back into that flow of, okay, I can dial down. But if I can get away to and that's why I'm doing the emotions thing, is because I'm trying to pick up on the cues before we get to that point, so that I can take a break, like when I'm on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm at a 3 or a 4. I can say, okay, listen, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then move away. But currently it's from 0 to 10 in split of a second. So how do I train myself to pick up on those cues a little better?
I want to thank Clerissa again for being brave enough to share this coaching session on the podcast, and let you know that you can hear the rest of this session next week. And also that if you are interested in doing a session for the podcast, that you can reach out to me in the link below. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up podcast. I'm blessed to have you here. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join us in the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up Facebook community. When you're ready for more support, I have the Heart Doodling with Jesus monthly membership, periodic group coaching, and one-on-one personalized coaching as well. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.